In Equatorial Guinea, a place where political power clings tighter than a stubborn stain, the latest scandal is something even reality TV producers might deem too far-fetched. Enter Balthazar, Mr. Engonga, better known by his nickname Bello, a nod to his striking good looks. As we called him in the previous video, we'll continue referring to him as Bello to keep things straightforward and avoid any mispronunciations. He wasn't just any civil servant. He was the head of the National Financial Investigation Agency, which is basically a fancy title for guy who's supposed to catch thieves. Plot twist. Turns out Bello himself was allegedly skimming state coffers dry and stashing cash in secret accounts in the Cayman Islands. But the plot thickened faster than a dodgy thriller when over 150, some say up to 400, sex tapes featuring Bello and a revolving cast of women, some connected to the country's upper echelons, erupted across social media. If you missed it or need more details, I covered this explosive scandal in a previous video, which should be appearing on the top right of your screen. For context, Equatorial Guinea isn't exactly known for openness. The press, more restricted than a prisoner in solitary confinement. So when these videos hit the airwaves, the country went into collective shock. The women in these explicit scenes weren't just anonymous faces. They included wives and close relatives of powerful figures, ministers and military officials. Some were aware they were being filmed, others not so much. But good luck verifying that in a country where the truth is locked away tighter than the president's Swiss bank accounts. Ah, yes, the president. His name is right there on the screen, so I won't risk butchering it. From here on out, let's just call him the Ancient One, given his age and the fact he's been in power longer than most of us have been alive. The 82-year-old world record holder for longest-serving president has been at the helm since 1979, outlasting every political trend you can think of. While the Ancient One's era once rode the wave of an oil boom, these days the country's economy looks as barren as an abandoned oil rig. The elite remain fabulously wealthy, while the other 1.7 million people in Equatorial Guinea, well, they're lucky if they can afford yesterday's bread. Let's not overlook the lavish lifestyle of his son, the current vice president, whose name is up on the screen. As usual, I'll spare myself from the pronunciation. For now, we'll just call him the Gloved One, a fitting nickname considering his extravagant taste. You might remember him as the bloke who bought Michael Jackson's $275,000 crystal-encrusted glove. You know, the one from the Bad Tour, because nothing screams fiscally responsible leadership like moonwalking memorabilia. Speaking of the Gloved One, he's not just a collector of eccentric trinkets. He's also a player in this latest scandal. Analysts suspect that the leak of Bello's tapes was part of a grander scheme to torpedo potential challengers for the presidential throne. You see, Bello isn't just a civil servant. He's the president's nephew and a man with aspirations. Nepotism is practically a national sport in Equatorial Guinea, but even here, ambition has its limits. Bello was taken into custody on October 25th, accused of embezzlement. His phones and computers were seized, and just days later, the avalanche of sex tapes began. The first mention on social media came via Diario Rombe, a news outlet run by an exiled journalist in Spain, noting on October 28th how social networks exploded with explicit content. The next day, posts on X, formerly known as Twitter, screamed of a monumental scandal shaking the regime. The scandal snowballed, with videos shared faster than bad news at a family reunion. Telegram channels, notorious for their no-holds-barred approach to content, were the launchpad. From there, the clips made their way to WhatsApp, sparking outrage as people started recognizing faces, Bello's of course, but also those of women linked to the highest tiers of power, including the president's own relatives. The government's reaction was as predictable as it was ineffective. On October 30th, the Gloved One, that ever-concerned vice president, issued a 24-hour ultimatum for telecom companies to stop the spread of the videos. "We cannot continue to watch families fall apart without taking any action," he posted on X, adding that an investigation was underway to find and punish the mysterious leaker. Given that Bello's equipment was in the hands of security forces, fingers started pointing in some interesting directions. The police, never ones to miss an opportunity to parade their moral compass, called on the women in the tapes to file complaints against Bello for non-consensual sharing of intimate images. At least one woman has taken up the offer, announcing that she'll be suing him for this breach. Still, what remains murkier than a backroom deal is why Bello made the recordings in the first place. Ego, leverage, boredom, your guess is as good as theirs. To add a bit of Shakespearean drama, Bello's father, that name, holds significant clout as the head of E.A.C, the Regional Economic and Monetary Union. After what feels like an epic quest to find an easy name to pronounce, we have London-based activist and sang Christia Assimi Cruz, who frames this as more than just a spicy scandal. According to Cruz, the current power play marks the beginning of the end for the Ancient One. Speaking to the BBC, Cruz speculated that the Gloved One is trying to eliminate any rival who dares to dream of the top seat. The Gloved One's own history isn't exactly clean. He's been convicted of corruption in France, and several countries have seized his luxury assets, presumably to keep him from building a monument to bad decisions. Yet here he is, pretending to be Equatorial Guinea's moral compass, vowing to crack down on graft and scandal. Just last year, he even had his half-brother arrested for allegedly selling a state-owned plane, because when it comes to betrayal, nobody does it quite like family. This week, he proposed installing CCTV cameras in government offices to combat indecent acts, because nothing says secure government like 24/7 surveillance to catch bureaucrats mid-affair. Meanwhile, search engine data reveals that global interest in Equatorial Guinea has skyrocketed, with Equatorial Guinea trending in countries like Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. Activists such as Cruz remind us that this spectacle is a sideshow. Equatorial Guinea has much bigger problems than this sex scandal, he said. This sex scandal for us is just a symptom of the illness. It's not the illness itself. It just shows how corrupt the system is. And there it is. While the world gawks at Bello's fall from grace, the real game, a game that decides who will take the Ancient One's iron throne, rages on behind closed doors, far away from the prying eyes of a curious public. That wraps up today's video. If you haven't seen the previous video about Bello's infamous sex tape scandal, it's being recommended on your screen now. Be sure to click it to catch up. To everyone who watched that first video, thank you so much for the unbelievable support. It really means a lot. Your response has been amazing, and I truly appreciate it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more trending stories. And as always, keep riding the trends here on Trend Rider 101.